Good day, good day, good day. It's Atlantic Discuss. Yes, every Friday. That's what we do. It's no holds barred. We go straight to the point and say it the way it really is. We're starting a 5-part series, State of the Nation, Nigeria. I've said it and I'll continue to say it. The largest concentration of Black people anywhere on the planet is Nigeria. Domiciled in Nigeria. 1 out of every 4 sub-Saharan African is a Nigerian. 1 out of every 6 Black person in the world is a Nigerian. And for all intents and purposes, there are statistics that can even let us know that Nigerians are the most educated migrating bloc to so many continents in the world. Some have said 1, some have said 2, some have said 3. But the relevance is there. In the United States, where I'm based here, 7 out of 10 Black doctors are Nigeria. And Nigeria, running behind schedule, at 1960, when it got independent, it was the beacon and hope of the entire Black world and the Commonwealth of Nations, with economic parity with almost most of the big countries in Europe. Nigeria had television even before Belgium and possibly Holland. We had it well, we started well. What has gone wrong? That is why we want to run this series. There's nobody else I know that loves this country like Professor Pat Utomi, who is going to be our guest today. Prof, welcome to Atlanta Discussion.
Thank you so very much. I'm pleased to join you.
Yes. You know why you are our first guest on this series? Because number one, you are pan-Nigerian. You know where you were born, where you went to school, the passion you have exuded everywhere, at every step in your life, from how you started your career as a young man, and almost everything you have said about this country is coming to pass. So, Prof, after all said and done, is this the Nigeria of your dream?
Certainly not, but not over. There are many people who have given up, rolled over, and said, well, what's the point? We've lost it with the Nigeria project. No, we have not lost it. Many years ago, I began to play a voice, what do you call it, when people call you and they hear this voice thing. And the voice thing that I had was a song, Nigeria Will Rise Up Again. Yeah. And I had it for years. I am confident that Nigeria will rise up again, but not with the kind of people who are running it today. Definitely not. There's a fundamental problem, and it's a crisis of elite. Some try to blame particular individuals, people who have power right now and all of that. Yes, they constitute part of that elite, but it's a more fundamental crisis of elite. I mean, an elite that cannot think in terms of the greater long-term interest of its people, that cannot be called an elite, actually. The problem is that somewhere along the line, and I will trace this back to some early research and writing by a remarkable Nigerian political sociologist called Peter Eke and a few others to talk about it. But somewhere along the line, the plot was missed, and the elite became so self-centered, so narcissistic, that they forgot the Nigerian people. In these elite bargains for rent out of the system, they forgot that you need to bake a cake. You need to have harmony to be able to get people to work together to create that pool that they can then share. They focused so remorselessly on what little was coming from crude oil sales. And all politics became about how can we accommodate each other in the sharing of this loot. Look, it's my turn. I've got it. Wait for your own turn. And they just could not build a nation. They just fell flat on their face in the business of nation building. And so we're in the mess that we are in. But it can be reconstructed. They can be shoved out of the way. But we have to train in next generation about what really public life is, about the fact that it is service, it's about the pursuit of immortality. And that is a great gain that comes from public life. Not about what you can grab, take, run, shit, this, that, do. No. Public life is a missionary duty in which you look at the young men as they were back then that brought us to independence. Look at the conversations they had in Lancaster House. And look at how they saw that what delivers the good is a federal structure, and they agreed to it. Look at the other countries that made that choice around the federal structure and how it has worked for them. But look how we have bastardized our own federal structure and made it a source of prevention of progress. And I mean, the fault is not all domiciled in one small group of people. It was a slide that just got worse. I just finished writing a chapter for a book, an anthology on presidential leadership in Nigeria, and they had assigned me to do IBB. Researching, writing that chapter was incredible. I mean, I thought I knew so much, and I did. I saw them, I participated, I was around. But the research itself provided me a certain understanding of how Nigeria collapsed and how it happened before our very eyes. And it's a shame, it's a pity, but you know, in some languages in Nigeria, they say you don't, because there is a bullet, run away from a fight, because a fight has to be fought for good to come. So that's where we are.
You almost took it out of my mouth, and I was going to ask you, where did we get it wrong? I don't want to encroach on what you're writing, but where did we get it wrong? You gave a wonderful example. The guys in Lancaster House, the Enaoros, even Bolage was a minister in Western Region at 20-something.
Yeah, they were all in their 20s. And
Okotie, all of them, they were young people, you know.
The oldest man was Zeke at 40, about 42 or 3.
Wow. So yeah. Where did we get it wrong? Where did we miss it, sir?
By the way, I saw something floating around the internet. Somebody forwarded it to me. I don't know whether it's truly from Professor Shoyinka, but he was asking the same question, why did you get it wrong? And he listed all the young ministers in their 20s. My name even got into it. Somewhere. And then said, today, all these young people are not at those ages, are not even thinking anything. Well, I'm not going to blame them so frontally. Many things that happened along the way.
Yes, sir.
Of course, there's the unfortunate convergence of soldiers and oil. When oil came, and it didn't become a factor until 1973. That's when it really became a factor. With the Yom Kippur Arab-Israeli war and the quadrupling of oil prices. And money just suddenly began to surge into the hands of those running Nigeria. Now, even my PhD thesis spoke to that, because when I was doing research, my PhD thesis, and I was interviewing Alison Aida, Asiodu, Jordan, and all those people. One of the things I remember clearly that Aida said to me was there was so much money coming in, short of standing on the streets and handing out money to anybody who was passing by. If we left the soldiers, they would use all of it to buy guns. And so we had to find so many projects to start with the money that was coming. It led to what, even in my PhD thesis back in 1982, I called a parastatal frenzy. We're creating one parastatal every other day to solve any problem. Now, that fact of its own, and all the people who went to these parastatals thought they were on a bonanza. Every parastatal was a bonanza. Look, just imagine how differently Botswana approached its own bonanza. Our bonanza, which came from oil, led us to this parastatals frenzy. And I will give you some specific examples that I saw happen from people who were well educated. And you think back at it and you go, my goodness, how is this possible? Look at the disaster that Ajaokuta is. $10 billion plus more spent, nothing ever produced. How could you go that way? I can tell you exactly how we went that way from the very beginning, because one of my very, very early mentors was Pius Okibo, who was the first chief economic advisor to the president or prime minister of Nigeria. And he would tell me some stories about how they went to a meeting of the National Economic Council, and Balewa announced that they were going to produce steel. The federal government was going to take the lead and produce steel. Then he announced where it would be, and the other premiers said, if it's going to be in one region, if you're federal government, you should not be involved in production. If you're going to produce, then you must produce in each of the regions. They said, but this thing, the endowments for it are in some particular region, so we have to cite it there. They said they argued and argued and argued, and after a time, Balewa asked them out of the meeting. And then when they were called back, the technocrats, Pamsek, himself, economic advisor, they all left, just the politicians now. When the politicians finished going after it, and they called them back, Balewa announced that there would be a steel mill built in every region. Kibo said he was like, my God, it's not possible. It doesn't make economic sense. He looked at Balewa. Balewa looked away. He said, as the meeting finished, he was walking towards the Prime Minister. Prime Minister said, Dr. Akibo, the powerful premiers have had their say. We will have our way. Mr. Prime Minister, what is our way? Dr. Akibo, we will do nothing.
Wow.
That's how Nigeria missed the steel age. So
wow.
Prime Minister Balewa decided to do nothing about steel instead of building a steel mill in every region, since it did not make economic sense. So this politics of sharing began back then, and then progressively got worse. When the military came and plenty of money came, they decided they could do everything. So they tried to go back to steel. And at that time, there was this global steel glut. You could pick up steel on the streets of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And so we turned to the global steel makers to come and build us steel plants. They said, you people, are you normal? Steel is a global glut. You want us to come and build you? They said, no, okay, people don't want us to have steel mill because they went to the Russians. And the Russians designed Ajaokuta and everything. But once it was designed, the Western companies, contracting companies, these people they're really serious. They want to build this thing. Come, the Russians don't give as much bribe as we're better at giving bribe than them. Come, let's Fuji roll, we'll do the civil works. No, we will do that. Before they knew it, Ajaokuta became a Tower of Babel with companies from west, east, north, anywhere. And that's why that project has never seen the light of day till today. So this parastatal frenzy, when I arrived back after my PhD in 82, I entered the country. One of the first people I met, I had written something and he was very excited. He read it. He said he wanted to meet me. Was Fred Brume. He later became Senator Brume. He was the chief executive of Alaja, the steel company in Alaja. So he invited me to come to Alaja. He wanted to read my PhD thesis and this and that. So they gave me a ticket. Delta Steel had their own airline, literally speaking, flying between Lagos and Warri. So they gave me a ticket and I got on their plane, brought me to Warri. I went to see Fred Brume this early morning. There were like 200 people waiting to see him. All kinds of contractors, up, down, here, there. I mean, we became very good friends much later in life. And I told him this story one day and we were laughing, but it wasn't funny. People everywhere. One of the people I ran into in the waiting room was a professor of music at University of Ibadan called Sam Akpabot.
I remember him.
Akpabot from the football madness and stuff like that. So Akpabot said to me, that he was a consultant to Delta Steel Company. I said, what are you consulting? He says that he is, they discovered that in Japan, one of the things they used to mobilize people is the company anthem. So he had a contract to write them a company anthem. And for years, Akpabot had a DSC vehicle. He had all kinds of, to write them an anthem.
Wow.
So the madness was out of this world. And it led to structural dislocations. Compare this with Botswana. People forget that between 1968 and 1980, Botswana was the fastest growing economy in the world, off of diamond exports. The leadership in Botswana decided that this mineral, this thing in the ground that God put there, was not put there for just these people who are here today. was put there for all Botswanans throughout human history. And so they cannot just use it like that. They decided that they would create a future fund into which they will save most of their earnings from diamond exports. That provided them opportunity for stabilization when the rainy day came. They enabled them to organize themselves a lot better. Remarkably, many years ago, more than 30 years ago, I was speaking about this same problem in Nigeria. And fortunately, the guy who was the head of the IMF at the time, in Nigeria, a guy called Brown was present, was at this breakfast meeting. I said, look, Nigeria should not be spending oil money like we are drunkards. We should break oil revenue into three pots. Pot one, which will go into our budget, should never exceed a certain amount we agree to, maybe like $30 or something like that. Everything from $30 to a certain whatever limit, 70 or whatever, should go into a stabilization fund. That fund will be in investments that are easy to monetize, such that if things were to change very quickly and oil prices drop to $10 as they did do in 1998, you would then take from that stabilization fund to make sure that the budget keeps running at $40 or $30 a barrel on. And then everything above 70 should go to a future fund, what we now call a sovereign wealth fund. I remember when I wrote this again, when I brought it up again, about around 1999 or 2000, and was pressuring President Obasanjo, who then wanted to start what was called excess crude account. I was attacked by my friends in state governments. I can give specific example. I was at Ibadan. I think the Tribune was giving me an award or something. And Wale Edun, who was commissioner for finance in Lagos, who's today finance minister, came to me and said, how can you support the federal government to take our money? I said, Wale, you should be smart enough to understand that if these funds are kept back, they will be like mutual funds that you're invested in. Lagos State will have its own share in that investment vehicle that you would have received on allocation, as everybody would. It's only to ensure that the Nigerian economy can continue to run smoothly. If everybody collects the money now, spend it like drunkards, there won't be something to fall back on a rainy day, and so on and so forth. I sometimes feel like, look, you talked about this all your life and you saw what was happening, where the problems were, where it was going, and we all fell into the ditch. We watched ourselves majorly because the Nigerian elite, and that's really my problem, the crisis of elite, a dishonest elite that has come to live off rents and is scared of anybody in government because they are afraid they won't get the opportunity to extract rent. And so they don't speak the truth. They don't speak truth to power. Now, their children will eat dust. Shows that they're not decent, honest people because they don't think enough about their children. They're just looking at what rent they can extract today. And that is what crippled Nigeria. And the problem is how to redeem this elite. Because if you think probably it's Tinubu or this, the next guy will just behave like him again. Say, no, it's the turn of the Yorubas. It's the turn of the Hausas. It's the turn of the... No, it's the turn of Nigeria. Let's build for tomorrow. Let's produce so that our children, invested with the talents that they have, can have a country that is sustainably progressive for the common good of all.
Wow. I was reading one of your tweets recently. You said democracy is under assault home and abroad. It does not mean that it doesn't have value or we don't know its worth. You said if we have true democracy and we will not have as much poverty and anger as we have in the land, because the first thought of a democratic leader is in the best interest of the people. And there was something else you also said. You said freedom and democracy reclaim movement. Now, can you please explain to us what you want to do with the freedom and democracy reclaim movement?
You see, having been fortunate or unfortunate to have been part of freedom struggles in Nigeria for 50 years now, fighting the military as a 21-year-old. This is my same friend, Baba. We started fighting.
We are going to get to him. Don't worry.
We were fighting when I was in university. I came out as a youth copper, writing about these things in New Breed magazines. We went into battle after battle, having fought all these battles for democracy and seeing those who were my partners yesterday betray me today or betray Nigeria today. And the next day, you have the next set of partners, they betray, and you begin to wonder, are you sane yourself? Are you really sane? Are you sure you are sane? Then you realize, yes, you don't have to join madness because the majority have started dancing naked on the streets. If you stay with what God has called you to do in this life, one day people will wake up to the way to do it right. And what is the problem? I was particularly stimulated in thinking that when last year I was arriving back to the US from Nigeria, it was first week in October, and Nobel had just named James Robinson alongside Darren Acemoglu and Johnson, winners of the Nobel Prize in Economics. You will recall that Robinson and Acemoglu had written the book Why Nations Fail. And of course, I keep reminding people that 10 years before they wrote Why Nations Fail, I wrote Why Nations Are Poor. And the thesis was the same thesis. They did a lot more research and all of that to provide evidence of what they were advancing. But one of the things that James said on that CNN interview the day they were announced as Nobel winners was that every country, or most countries, now know what it takes to develop. But few, for some reason, do not seem to want to do what it takes to develop. And he named Nigeria by name as one of those countries that know what it takes to develop, but refuses to do it. And it's very simple. Nigeria refuses to do it because the elite want, in their narcissism, in their self-love, to ganache for themselves what could have been used to make the country great. That's why Nigeria is stuck where it is. And so one of the things that their work suggests to is that democracy, facilitates development if true Democrats are looking at what's the best interest of the people all the time and using it to make political choices. Democracy will lead to development. And we know from the Afrobarometer series that have been run since 1999, I believe, that Nigerians are so desirous of democracy, but they are so tired of what we call democracy. A real paradox. They desire democracy, don't want democracy to go, but they don't think what they have is democracy. Every year, it's a longitudinal survey. You can see how Nigerians feel about democracy and where they have been left.
Wow. Wow. I'm dumbfounded. I don't even know what to say again. I don't know. So, Prof, you are one of the very few people, possibly the only person that seems to believe that will come out of all this, and you've given your reason because something's always coming to you by intuition, spiritually. You just know that Nigeria cannot be like this forever. But the signals on ground does not tally with your thoughts. They don't tally at all. Our elections are not free and fair. No institution of government today is credible, from the judiciary to the police and what have you. Now, our worst case scenario is let's look at the opposition and the government of the day and all that. If this is all we have, either President Tinubu continues or any of these opposition people Atiku will be and all, if that's all we have, how do you think that can help solve our problem? Do you think we should still work with them like that? Do you think they can reborn themselves, or they can just decide to be selfless?
It's not about people, though. We make
Mm.
mistake in looking at people, which is what I've told people many times. Wale Okuni, who has been a very loyal collaborator with me in these things so through the years, keeps saying to me, but leader, what's the problem with you? We organize this thing. When it's going to work, you leave it for somebody. What is wrong with you? I said, look, Wale, it's not about me. It's not about position. It's about a country that we can build. However we can build it, whoever it is, we can build it with. That seems an appropriate person at any point in time. I'm ready for that person to move forward. But the truth about it is that it's about institutions. How do you build institutions that can make Nigeria make progress? These fellows are, most of them, still scrambling for who? They have no agenda, no plan for what to do with Nigeria. I mean, some people write something and give them, and they will say this, but they don't even understand what they're saying. The truth is that you have to get the people themselves to even know what they need to do, which is why the Freedom Converge is on my agenda. And the idea is to massively educate the Nigerian people on why Nigeria is where it is. And then to get them in understanding to head towards Abuja. If 7 to 8 million of us move into Abuja, all in white, green, white, carrying white, green flags, and you take a satellite photograph and the whole world looks like green, white, green, these characters will change their mood. The thing that has happened in Nigeria is that the people in power have reached a stage, and Bishop Honor of Nsukka was brilliant in capturing it in one of his sermons. He says, when a government is not even afraid of its people, that country is doomed.
It's doomed, that's true.
Yeah, and the people in power in Nigeria have total contempt for the Nigerian people. Total. Because they think if you just bribe this one, bribe that one, all of them will just keep quiet. But they are jokers. They don't know what will hit them, when it will hit them. And that's what has happened throughout history. Remember the famous Marie Antoinette thing, Louis XIV. And he says, why don't they eat cake?
Cake, yeah.
Bread? They eat cake.
Yeah. And most revolutions are hunger-induced anyway.
Of course. And it usually surprises those who are overthrown in those revolutions. But what's wrong with these people now? They could have eaten cake. So I think that what will shock these characters when Nigerians come after them is that they underestimate the Nigerian people. So these leaders who don't fear the people, when they will begin to fear, it will be fear of peeing, However, before we let our country just collapse into all of that, we're planning this huge march on Abuja, where if they don't change all the things that will just insulate the judiciary from elections, insulate, recreate how INEC is selected, and reboots the process so that people have confidence in elected governments, so that there's legitimacy for government. Right now, governments lack legitimacy in Nigeria. The people see those in power as an army of occupation, not belonging to them. That's the way they see themselves. They see themselves as conquered people, conquered by these people who claim to be civilians, but are worse than military dictators. Look, judiciary was much stronger under the military. It gave orders that military governors and presidents or whatever, winked at or winked and, flinched when they came. Right now, judiciary is, very sadly, a lapdog in one corner, INEC, another one in another corner. Makes them not fear the people, but they will see when. I am telling you, they will see something.
You think the people are ready?
It's not about the people. The reality will force itself on them. And then the way that you organize them.
That's true.
We're going to make this a global movement. It will start even from diaspora. 1 month before the actual Convergence on Abuja. There will be convergence in Washington, in Frankfurt, in London. The Nigerians would have been telling the world, we have had enough. And then from every nook and cranny of Nigeria, activities organized, we have had enough, and then the convergence on Abuja. Look, you know what happened when the so-called third term bid thing was going on? When people came to National Assembly and brought out money, I said, look, money you gave me, I didn't take Those things will happen again.
Oh, God.
They are about to happen again.
Let's talk about your friend, their frenemy, as you call it, President Obasanjo. You know, when they say owners of Nigeria, you know, I'm sure you agree with me, it's no more a cliche. The General IBBs, the General Obasanjo, Abdul Salam, Gowon, possibly General Gusso and Danjuma. These gentlemen, they don't seem to be happy with the way the country is. And clearly, they can't absorb themselves per se of whatever is going on now. And every time I look at them, I mean, I can only look at them from afar. You interact with them better. That's why I'm asking the question. It does look like they're trying to make an attempt to rectify the mistakes they made of the past. Do you think they have a moral obligation and to do it? And do you think they can succeed from the way they're going?
Well, every culture, every society needs elders.
Absolutely.
I always say to them, one-on-one, you gentlemen should act like elders. Nigeria is drained. Elders should speak up. What will anybody do to you at this stage? Kill you? If you die now, you've not died too early.
Everybody is over 80 now.
Yes. I remember, actually, funny enough, about 10 years or so ago when I used to say it, and I used to say it very frequently to Danjuma. And one day I was going, Pat, don't start again. Don't start.
Oh, God.
The country needs elders. And when things are out of whack, elders should stand up and talk. And I think it's important that they are doing that. I think many of them did their very best in spite of the failings that they may have had here and there. And they have it as a duty to their legacy that they speak up now to organize things. The total collapse of our country, where, look, institutions are of no good, is dangerous, extremely dangerous. And elders must speak up at this kind of time. So I'm pleased to see some of them. I'm glad IBB, for example, corrected the notion that the 1966 coup was an Igbo coup. And most of us knew from the beginning it was not. But they used it to galvanize power, small people, and made enemies of people who should be friends. The fact that he came in and said it means a lot to taking away that one of those weapons that they use. I think General Gowon probably needs to do more. I don't support those who have been very critical of him. I've spoken up on that. But I think he needs to do more. Each time I say to him that he should say something, he says to me, why don't you write it? I say, I told him, write your book. He says, why don't you write it? I mean, I spent a whole weekend with him in 1981 or thereabouts when I was researching my PhD thesis. He said, you have all the information, write it. But I don't have the information. I just have a little of the questions I asked him. So they should all begin to think of their own immortality. What will make them live forever in the hearts of people, and begin to use it to point to the fact that we're not going in the right direction as a country right now.
Prof, what's our worst case scenario? I mean, I understand there are efforts being made here and there. Subconsciously, unconsciously, the people might have to react one way or the other. But it's not impossible that does not happen. You understand?
Sure.
Yeah. So what's our worst case scenario?
I will call it worst case scenario. If we come to a conclusion that we don't want to live together, that we can't live together, and let everybody proceed to their father's house.
You're talking about
literally, everybody proceed to their father's house. But let me tell you one of the risks. One of my very dear friends that I had so much regard for so many years, now late, Elijah Medjoda.
Yeah, I know.
Just before Elijah Medjoda died a few short years ago, he called me. He was on his way to a meeting of Fulani leaders. And he said to me, Pat, what you people don't understand in the South is why Northerners hold steadfastly to Nigeria. You say, some people think it's because of resources on science. No, nothing. Nigeria is such that if you ask it to break up, you can easily get an Igbo nation. There's a contiguous area of Igbos. They can be a nation. You can easily get a Yoruba nation. You can even get an Ijaw nation. He said, but northern Nigeria, he told me, there are only 5 states in northern Nigeria that are in, people of similar kinds. He said northern Nigeria will be war without end.
Wow.
That it is in the survival interest of northerners to have Nigeria. It was an amazing revelation. I had never thought of it that way. Nigeria is good for everybody as a big country that gives us economic possibilities, gives us all kinds of things. But if really, truly, we so dislike each other, and I don't see why, my nature is the universal dignity of the human person. But if there are people who see life differently and hate each other so much, then let everybody go to their father's house. If we all then have the Igbo nation, the Ijaw nation, the Yoruba nation, maybe the Igbos and the Efiks can discuss possibility of merger into one nation. Maybe the Yorubas and the, I don't know who, next door, those or whatever, can discuss a merger. Maybe. But it's better for us to go to our father's house than to die trying to be in Nigeria.
Interesting. Your good friend, somebody you know very well, Father Kuka, Hassan Kuka, the Archbishop of Sokoto Diocese, he said the country is turning into a national morgue, with the recent killing, Benue, Plateau. And the issue is perennial. It's always been there. We just call it different names, There was whatever they call Boko Haram today is not different from the Mytasini of those days. Those things, they're just reoccurring, same problem, new leader will come, same problem, same. It's just been reoccurring. Everything is perennial, It's just that it has gotten worse. So if in the plateau, for example, the Benue, they are killing people helplessly, is it that the government of the day does not know what to do? Or they just decide to ignore it? I'm confused. I honestly, if I have the answer to this, I won't ask you.
No, it goes back to this thing I say about the narcissism, the self-love of this elite. All they care about is themselves. If they can take care of themselves, jump onto presidential plane and fly away, they can do this. All those things people are suffering may be nice to solve, but it will come in there. The truth of the matter is that the solution is easy, very easy. By the time we make policing a local function, we have community police, we have state police, we have a federal police, just like you have in this country. You and I here, I keep telling people, I went to school in backwoods of Indiana. My university had its own police force. They carry guns, everything. The governor came to watch basketball match when I was there in 1980. And his driver did not park properly. The university police gave the governor's car a ticket.
Wow.
Official car of the governor of Indiana got a ticket for not parking well on campus. Came to watch Isaiah Thomas play. You leave Indiana University, you enter the city of Bloomington. It has its own police force. The Bloomington. You go into the county, Marion County, whatever it is, it has its own police force. Then you have state troopers. Then if there's a civil rights violation, the FBI shows up. And if there is real rioting or whatever, they have what they call those there's a unit that's
SWAT.
No, SWAT. No, SWAT is for this thing. They're like paramilitary.
Oh, National Guard.
National Guard.
National Guard. National Guard.
National Guard. So when you have those kinds of fallback in security, it might soon have one or two Fulani boys carrying AK-47. Give the same AK-47 officially to community police. Those Fulani boys won't bring out gun next time they see it. That's what makes America safe.
That's true.
Yeah. So they know what to do, but they because of their selfishness, they don't do it.
Prof, the Hausa Fulani elite, do you think they feel entitled in Nigeria? I mean, based on their recent utterances, Akin Baba Ahmed, I'm sure you know him very well, said,
Very well.
"No, I rule Nigeria without the North. This without the North." You know, I mean, does that not show a sense of entitlement that, okay, we're in charge? And based on some of things you said today, they don't even look as strong as we think they are. I mean, based on the revelation from Ahmed Jordan. But for anybody to say, okay, without the North, nobody can be president, is that not a horrible sense of entitlement?
Elite braggadocio that they use in this bargaining for rent. It's just, yeah, people should be honest intellectually with one another so we can build a country. That's all nonsense. Nobody.
Have we reached it? Have we reached a stage where we won't look at tribe or religion and just pick a leader of merit? Are we close to that?
I mean, look, even under the military, who complained that the one leader after the other was a northerner? Who even complained?
That's true.
Nobody talked so much about it.
That's true.
It became obvious that some people were trying to rub people's face in the sand. And then power became basis for survival. If people are left alone, nobody cares, and you do your business well, and you live well, who will care who's president? But now, it's all about looting. So you don't get a chance to loot unless your own person is there. Because we don't run a proper economy. We don't run a proper country.
Now, I have two more questions because I know you have to go. But the next one is on religion and our institution, the traditional and religious institution. You know, I mean, it's unfair that Nigerian society has really degenerated. But I mean, I think it is worse off when we see that our traditional institution and religious institution has also decayed with the country. How is that? Considering the spiritual aspect of what the religion is about, why should they toe the line?
Well, if you recall, what I continually say is that Nigeria has experienced a collapse of culture.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a collapse of culture. The values have gone south. Religious leaders, many of them are charlatans and, use it as an excuse for making money and all of that. So, it's what you get. I mean, Jared Diamond, in his great study of how societies have failed through human history, in the book Collapse, which is where I get the collapse when I use when I from here, is that is culture. When culture collapses, society has nowhere to go. Look, I was amazed by a high life musician from Ghana years ago, Ben Brackwell. Says, if you see a country where its politicians are richer than its businessmen begin to run, that society is about to collapse. In Nigeria, politicians and religious leaders, save a few Orthodox faiths, are richer than businessmen. You know that famous story, and it's in a chapter of another book I've just finished. There's a joke attributed to Bishop Cook. I don't know whether he's the one who said it. It says in Nigeria, the A students in class go to medical school. The B students go to business school and become the bosses of the A students who are doctors as MDs of companies. Then the C students enter politics and the MDs have to report to them. And then the ones that didn't go to university at all become thugs and carry ballot boxes for the politicians, and politicians have to bow before them.
Oh, wow.
And then those ones have to go to the babalawos and the prophets and bow before those ones so that they can give them Kruve, the medicine that bullets does not. That's why I saw one skit. I laughed and nearly fainted. But this guy comes to say, "Who's the person who does this medicine of, bullet this thing?" Say, "It's this woman." She brings her gun. Let me test you. The woman jumped into the bush and started running. That's the tragedy of Nigeria, is in inverse.
Wow.
Very sad.
My final question. Now, we've had military rule in the past. We've had democracy now from 1990 till date, roughly 25, 26 years. Do you think the politicians today are provoking the military?
Well, I think they believe that the military does not exist anymore. That the military is just a group of people sharing money when they send them to go and fight Boko Haram. They believe that what Obasanjo did by taking out the politically ambitious boys in the military has defined the military. But that's all foolishness. And yes, we don't all want to see a coup d'etat going back to those days. But Nigeria does need a reset button. And all of us have to play a role in that reset, whether we're military or civilian. The people should rise. What Nigeria needs now is people power. As happened in the Philippines under Marcos, two women with their prayer, their rosary beads, as happened with the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, as happened with Gandhi marching against the colonial imperial power, as happened when Martin Luther King Jr. descended on Washington on that march. The time is now for the Nigerian people to take their country back.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you, Professor Okedinachi Pat Utomi, the man that's pulled everywhere in Nigeria, from Kano to the Southeast to Lagos. You're pan-Nigerian trait and character, a true patriot. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do. I know you're an elder statesman now. I know you're knocking on 70. Logically, you should be just playing golf, relaxing, not doing, but you're still at the but now trying to, you're even motivating us, the younger ones, that we should do. Yeah, they won't making us not give up. But thanks for all you do. We appreciate it. Yeah. We pray that the Almighty will continue to guide you, give you good health, and the knowledge, the wisdom will be continuous. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, we really appreciate what you do. It's you say it the way it is. And it's fair to say you've always been saying it like that from day one. You have been writing, you are still writing. And I wonder where you get the time and energy to write. So today now you just really wrote a chapter. Prof is writing another book. We just did some in Houston the other day, almost about 7 books, But I mean, it just shows that the quality of leadership we have, there's a lot of indolence in the land. There's a lot of mental laziness, And like you said, people just write this paper, give them, they read it, they don't even know what's in it. And thank you so much for your time. To all our viewers, it's a wrap. We'll see you next week. This part 1 will be coming to you with part 2 next week. State of the Nation, Nigeria. You heard from Prof. The people have to rise up. Vox Populi, Vox Day. The time is now. We cannot survive going on like this forever. The country is battered almost beyond repairs, and we need a reawakening. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. God bless you. Thank you, Prof.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Welcome. This is our Tuesday Tonic, and I am Pat Utomi. Today, I begin a series to speak to an initiative of bringing 7.2 million Nigerians from outside of Abuja into Abuja to pressure the system to become more democratic. Our country is dying before us. We all know that. The corruption is unbelievable. Disregard for the state of anomy, killings every day, Plateau, Benue, killing fields, kidnapping. We must take our country back. And part of the reason the country is so challenged is that we're not a democracy anymore. How can we truly become a democracy? Now, this initiative, piggybacking on the experience of many countries who struggle for freedom, is really a freedom converge, a convergence in Abuja of Nigerians, real people, asking for freedom from a political class that has really ruined the possibilities for the Nigerian people. Freedom from weak institutions that have prevented the rule of law from really being part of our experience in recent years. Freedom from a poor political choice process that brings into public life many people who should never be near public life, such that the Nigerian state is, let's be very honest, a criminal enterprise today. Freedom from not caring about the basic needs of the people who are the most downtrodden, the most vulnerable in our society. Freedom from rent-seeking and allowing people to produce their way out of poverty, which is possible given our endowment in that country. And so, from every geopolitical zone of Nigeria, we're going to be mobilizing 1.2 million people to march towards Abuja. It's going to be an elaborate, like 2-week process, beginning with concerts in all the state capitals, including colloquia and all of that, looking at our freedoms, looking at constitutional reform and all of those. And then the journey. It may take 3 days for some people, may take much shorter for those who will come from Kogi, but everybody will start moving progressively towards Abuja. We will have the world join us, participate in this process. It will be on global media everywhere. For 12 days, we will capture the imagination of this planet in the desire for freedom in Nigeria. The Afrobarometer series have shown Nigerians desire and love democracy. We also know from the work of James Robinson, Asimoglu, and others how democratic institutions are critical for material progress. But we have not been allowed democracy, and we want to fight for our freedom. We want to take our country back in the way that the women praying with their rosaries in Manila under Marcos, when Cardinal Singh reigned, took back their country. In the way that Ukrainians in the Orange Revolution found a democracy. In the way that Martin Luther King marched into Washington. In the way that Mahatma Gandhi led his walks. We, the people of Nigeria, are ready to reclaim our country. I'll give you updates and all work towards this. Let's work towards this. Let's sometime in November or December, when the diaspora types will also be able to join us in significant numbers, take our country back. God bless us as we do.